On today's show, we are going to set the stage for the NFL draft by going market by market through the NFL draft props menus. We'll talk some classic bets like over under 2.5 running backs in round one, some controversial ones, maybe like which wide receiver will go first in this class. And we'll hit some of the exotic stuff like which team will draft Ashton Genty, which team will draft Tyler Warren, etc. I want to start with these odds to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 right now. And I want to emphasize we're like 3.5 weeks out from the draft. Now is the time to get the best numbers by far. And yeah, you'll get more information and you'll get more solid information later. But now is the best time to get numbers that simply will not be here in a couple weeks. That's why we want to get on here and do this show now. We'll likely have another show on props, on draft props closer to the draft. But now is the time, I think, to get out in front of some of this stuff. What I don't think we can really get out in front of is odds to go number one. I know like maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, you could get Cam Ward at even money. You could get Cam Ward at minus 135 or so. He's out to minus 2,000 now. As we talked with Field Yates about last week, this is like a foregone conclusion. I think everybody expects it to be Cam Ward. I don't think there's really a bettable spot in this market. Odds to go number two, though, Amico, is where maybe there is a bettable market. Now, there have been some reports from Schefter, from others, that the Browns are zeroing in on Abdul Carter. They hold the number 2 overall pick. That would give them Abdul Carter with number 2 overall pick and Myles Garrett at 120-something guaranteed. Amico, how do you feel about the number 2 pick right now? The Browns currently hold it.
Yeah, I think that the odds have shifted a little too dramatically towards Carter. This feels pretty up in the air at this juncture. We saw some movement today on Travis Hunter getting down to plus 230. He was like closer to 5-1, I would say, when the day started. But I think him and Shedeur Sanders definitely have some compelling, reasons that they could be the pick. I mean, for Sanders, who I still really like in this spot, like the Browns need a quarterback, just like point blank period. I know that there's some rumors that they could possibly acquire Kirk Cousins. I think that that's definitely viable. But I think that that's a difficult transaction still to kind of complete. I mean, the Falcons would have to eat a bunch of the money. I think that the precedent here is like a 3rd round pick. Like, are you going to give the 67th pick for Kirk Cousins? I don't know. I mean, they could do it, but they also might not. So I think that Shedeur is definitely live, and Hunter, I think, has a really compelling case for being the best player in the draft. So certainly, he'd be the Browns' best receiver. He'd be their 2nd best corner. Like, there's certainly reasons for him to go also. So at these odds, I like the Sanders at plus 650. I think we just have to really be on our toes here. I think the Browns are notoriously very difficult to kind of figure out.
Yeah, Lance Zierlein, who just released his 3rd mock draft, just as we were going on air, he has the Browns taking Shedeur Sanders, but trading back into the end of the first round. He's been having Shedeur Sanders falling into the 20s, but he did have the Browns trading back into the first round to get him. Kirk Cousins looked so washed last year. I mean, he didn't play well. He had 2 good games, both against the Buccaneers, who had the worst pass defense in the NFL. His ball was fluttering. I mean, he could not drive the ball at all. That is not what you want in Cleveland. That's actually one of the knocks, like one of the reasons that people are justifying the Browns not taking Shedeur Sanders is because he doesn't have great arm strength. But Kirk Cousins isn't going to be an answer in that vein. I still think that Jimmy Haslam could get involved here. He was publicly talking about how they whiffed on Deshaun Watson yesterday. He's out there in the public talking about their quarterback situation, and he's a very hands-on owner, especially when it comes to the quarterbacks. Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Watson. I mean, I think that he could get involved and push some buttons. I like Shedeur Sanders at plus 650 to be the number 2 overall pick and to go to Cleveland.
Yeah, it's super interesting. There's a lot of smoke, not just Field Yates. And Field came on our show last week and said this Kirk Cousins to Cleveland thing is very real. There's been more smoke out there today on Kirk Cousins going to Cleveland. If I was the Browns, I understand the Abdul Carter play. You could have a truly, truly dominant pass rush for a long time with Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter on the bookends there. But again, at minus 250, probably not a bet there for me. The plus 650 on Sanders, I guess, is okay. The number 3 pick starts to get even more interesting. We have Travis Hunter at minus 140, Shedeur Sanders plus 140, Abdul Carter plus 250. This is where the Giants sit right now. Obviously, I think the consensus is that these four will be the top four picks. Cam Ward, in some order: Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, Abdul Carter. Giants, of course, went out and got Russ Wilson to pair with Jameis Winston. Amico, where are you at on odds to go number 3 right now?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that Carter's a little light here. If we can make good arguments for Hunter and for Sanders at 2, then that would leave Abdul Carter on the board at 3. And again, he's one of 2 position players that I would say are blue chip in this draft. The 2 non-quarterbacks, I would say Carter and Hunter are clearly a tier above everybody else. So, I mean, I think the Giants would probably take Carter if Hunter went second. I think that they've backstop the quarterback position enough where they don't have to take that player at 3. They can still take a Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or someone like that, either in round 2 or trade up, back into round 1. But I mean, this team needs to win. Like Brian Daboll, Joe Shane, this team needs to win. A rookie quarterback that's going to sit on the bench half the year is not going to get that done for you. What is going to get that done for you is a guy who's going to get, 8 to 10 sacks right away, or a guy who can get you, 800 yards receiving and like 3 picks right away. So I think that they're taking probably one of those 2 guys with the 3rd pick now that they have the quarterback situation a little figured out.
Yeah, Evan Ronan had a tweet. He's saying, just because they got Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston does not mean they will not take a quarterback early. He didn't say that they won't take them at number 3, which, would be interesting, I guess. But where do you think the Giants are at the quarterback position now? And any thoughts on the number 3 overall pick here?
I don't know. That's a tough question to answer right now. I really don't know. Field was talking about how he thinks that the Giants absolutely are still a candidate to select Shedeur Sanders. He said that on Twitter. He said that on our show.
Yeah.
To me, like that kind of when they signed Jameis and then they signed Russ, it kind of was to me like an indication that they thought that they weren't going to get a chance at Shedeur Sanders, that he was going to go number 2. So they doubled down on the veteran quarterbacks. No NFL insiders have really seconded that notion. So it makes me now skeptical of my initial gut feeling. But I don't know. This could go any which way, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't really have a play here.
It's so dependent on what the Browns do at 2. And it's just, I don't know. I just don't know.
Absolutely. And I would not rule out trades here at all, at 2 or 3, and especially here at 4, as we move to the number 4 overall pick, where the Patriots have. To me, the Patriots' biggest need, Amico, is offensive line. And it's not particularly close. I don't think that there's a Joe Alt type where you saw the Chargers kind of reach up a little bit and take Joe Alt really high last year. I don't know that there's an offensive lineman like that in this class. So maybe the Patriots are listening at trade offers. What do you think about the number 4 spot here?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a trade down spot. If the draft starts in some order, Ward, Hunter, Carter, then you don't have a slam dunk pick at 4 if you're the Pats. So you try to flip back for someone who, maybe they want Sanders, maybe they want to jump the Jags for a Mason Graham, maybe someone's really hot for Tyler Warren, whoever. The only thing that I think is going to be tricky regarding trades, and Albert Breer talked about this yesterday, there's just not a lot of people that teams are high on outside of that first 4, or outside of that first 3, I guess, plus Shedeur if you'd like a quarterback. So 4 to 24 could be pretty flat, and in that case, it's difficult to find a partner to move back. So that's where you get into the Will Campbell, Membu, what do you think is best there? But I absolutely think the Patriots will try to shop this pick if they can't get Hunter or Carter.
Yeah, I mean, Will Campbell's down to plus 350 to go number 4 overall, and that's the dynamic that Amico is describing, where Shedeur is one of the blue chips that's left, but the Patriots don't need a quarterback, and they end up being listen, we need offensive line. Maybe it's a reach on Will Campbell, but we just go ahead and bite the bullet and take him, or the other offensive lineman, Membu, who is plus 280 here. We'll talk more about that dynamic in a little bit here. Evan, any thoughts on what the Patriots are thinking here at number 4 overall right now?
I honestly don't have any strong take on this right now at this moment. As we get closer to the draft, I will. As I start to roll out mock drafts, I will. But not right now. I do think it's worth noting, though, that, and I've heard this echoed by several, and I'm listening to podcasts all the time, watching these guys, the draft insiders, Daniel Jeremiah, Lance Zierlein, Dane Brugler, even Danny Kelly he did a podcast today from The Ringer. They're all talking about how it's really like a 3 or 4 player draft, and then it's absolutely wide open, beginning with the Jaguars at 5, and it's extremely wide open, especially like in the 20s. It could go any which way. So I think that right now, I think it's like it would be smart to think about a lot of long shots, taking long shots right now that could become shorter as we move closer and people start to develop a little bit more confidence and hear more stuff and leaks occur. But right now, I'd be looking at a lot of long shots. That's what I'm trying to do right now.
For sure. Totally agree. Number 5 overall will be the last pick here or the last market that's up for odds to go in this spot. Mason Graham minus 110. That surprised me a little bit here, Amico. And by the way, the Jaguars currently hold the number 5 pick. To me, the Jaguars need everything. Yes, they need offensive line, but they need everything. Minus 110 just struck me as a pretty aggressive number, considering what you said about how flat this class is once you get past the top 4. However, I think that you actually might have bet this, Amico. What do you think about odds to go number 5 right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's strong interest here probably between these two parties, whether or not it occurs at 5 or maybe they trade back and try to have that same thing happen. But, James Gladstone has talked about we need big people. Like he's from the Rams. Like the Rams are big trenches organization. Jacksonville went out and they spent some money on the offensive line in free agency. It doesn't mean that they can't double down and take one of the top offensive linemen here at 5, but I mean they definitely have a pretty clear hole at defensive tackle. So I think this is just a lot of decent dot connecting here to attach Graham to this pick. This is another team where, like, if one of those top guys were to fall for whatever reason, they would take them. But I don't have like a strong pick that's down the board. I mean, Jalen Walker was the pick here in Daniel Jeremiah's last mock. He's 13-1. So if you're really into Jeremiah, which I mean, usually I am, that's a decent wager. But I think that Graham is probably correctly the prohibitive favorite here.
This is where you start looking at long shots, I think. I mean, you could throw a couple of darts at this one. As you mentioned, Daniel Jeremiah, now that mock was from March 18th, so it's a little dated. But in his last mock, as you mentioned, he had Jalen Walker. Jordan Reed from ESPN, we had him on the show last year. He had Will Johnson at 25-1 to go to the Jaguars at 5. And I think even like Matthew Golden at 40-1. I think it's long shot time right now. And this is a wide open pick.
Yeah. I mean, Mason Graham certainly had a really big time college career, right? Like 2-time All-American, national champion, bunch of CFP semifinals, etc. 6'3", 320. I see it. I could see it for sure. It's just not like an exciting pick, I don't think, for the new regime and the Jaguars to be like, hey, we're going to take a defensive tackle, number 5 overall. Like, that's very exciting. Okay. Let's go to some of the positional stuff. So a lot of these are which will be X player to be first off the board at their position. So first quarterback selected, obviously Cam Ward is now minus 20,000. Shout out to anyone who got on that before it got completely out of control. Odds to be the second quarterback market has gotten way tighter than I personally thought that it would. It's down to Shador minus 550, Jackson Dart plus 350. Now we get the hunting narrative going, Amico. I don't know if you saw this today. They got pictures of Jackson Dart out there shooting some turkey and bringing him down. Jackson Dart's had a lot of momentum over the last, I don't know, week or so. What do you think about the Shador versus Jackson Dart odds to be second quarterback selected?
I mean, I'm definitely a Jackson Dart fan. We put out his profile today on the site for Dynasty. So, like, I'm a fan. But I still think that this is way too close for Dart. I mean, Breer has mentioned a couple times that there are some teams that have Dart ahead of Sanders, and I can definitely see that. Totally different style of play, so a little bit of choose your flavor there. But I just don't feel like Dart has quite enough momentum. Like, he would basically have to get into the top 10, and Sanders would have to fall. When this was like, I don't know, 9-1 2 weeks ago, I thought that would probably be a better price, but this is too close for me. I think Sanders is still, I mean, he's the only one that anyone's talking about going 2 or 3.
Right.
And then I think even further down the board, like 6, 7, whatever, he would still be the favorite there.
Yeah, I mean, if Sanders falls like Lance Zierlein is projecting, then you start to see value on Jackson Dart. But plus 350 would probably be too short for me here also on Jackson Dart. Evan, any thoughts on the Jackson Dart seeming rise up people's draft boards?
I don't think it's crazy that he could be the second quarterback drafted. I'm with you guys. I wish it would be like, I'd bet it at like plus 700. I don't know about plus 350.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart is really interesting because he has been buzzing a lot, really going back to like early in the process. Everyone kind of agrees that he really doesn't drive the football with a lot of velocity, but he's a really good runner. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Bo Nix, who a lot of people thought didn't even belong in the first round last year. He wound up going number 12 overall. But Jackson Dart, unlike Shedeur Sanders, ran for a ton of yards in college. Apparently, he had an awesome pro day. I know everybody does well at their pro days, but his was particularly spectacular. I don't think it's crazy. I just wish it was a little bit longer, but I don't think it's crazy, especially if Lance is right about Shedeur slipping into the 20s, which he's been beating that drum. And we heard that at the combine too, that people, didn't necessarily love the way that Shedeur Sanders carried himself or how he interviewed. And, his like we're having Mike Renner on the show on Thursday, and I was just reading his comparisons for draft prospects. One of the most common comparisons for Shedeur Sanders was Teddy Bridgewater, and that's who Renner compares him to. And Teddy Bridgewater was, I think, like one of the last picks in the first round, if I recall correctly. I think the Vikings traded back up to get him. I think that's where Shedeur Sanders theoretically belongs from a talent standpoint. But again, his draft projection is very, very wide.
Yeah, so Dart is plus 350 here. And I just want to reiterate to people, we're showing DraftKings here because they have the most robust menu. You need to check every site before you make a bet on this stuff. The lines can vary wildly. Don't listen to Silva. Check every site before you make a bet. ESPN, FanDuel, both have really solid menus up right now. Anybody else have menus up right now, Amico, besides DraftKings, ESPN, and FanDuel?
Caesars has a pretty good menu right now going.
Caesars has a good menu going now.
I wanted to run something by Amico. Jalen Milroe to be the second quarterback drafted at 80-1. I know it kind of seems crazy. Amico, come on, just will you bear with me?
All right, I'll let you give your case, and then I'll tell you to donate the money to charity.
Can you just listen for a second? I don't know. There's been like some buzz on him, maybe like sneaking into the end of the first round. All right, so shoot me down.
I mean, he just doesn't have it like that. Like, he's a project. I think the buzz has been a little positive lately, but I think he's still a day 2 guy, a project guy. People are looking at Sanders as a guy who can play right away, Dart as being further along than Milroe. So I just
people keep asking me what's the difference between Jalen Milroe and Anthony Richardson, which I don't have a great answer for, considering the way it's run out for Anthony Richardson. But yeah, what do you say to the people who be like, what's the difference between Milroe and Richardson?
I mean, they're like 20 to 30 pounds different. You look at Anthony Richardson, he's like a freak show and was a little further along in his development. Milroe is a guy who's like great deep ball, good runner, but he's like average size. Like, he has to really develop. Like, I don't think that teams view him the same way. I think teams saw Richardson were like, shoot, this is Josh Allen. Like, we could get Josh Allen. They don't see Milroe that way. They see Milroe as a guy that, like, best case scenario, he's a pretty good player, but not in that same tier.
Well, Anthony Richardson has developed so well that he's now in a battle for his life with Daniel Jones. So,
hey man, if there's anything in your life that'll get you to figure it out, it's Daniel Jones behind you. All right.
Okay.
I was binging podcast. I was binging podcasts with Ian Rappaport and Jeremiah the other day, and I can't remember which insider it was, but one of them said that he thinks that Daniel Jones is going to be the week 1 starter in Indianapolis.
Oh my God.
That's a real possibility.
Okay. So I mentioned betting early. This is one market that I did bet early. Took Matthew Golden to be the first wide receiver off the board at plus 320. This is now plus 150. There's still a lot of Tet fans out there, I feel like, Amico. Tet McMillan versus Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden blows the doors off the 40 at the combine, 429. Stock starts to rise. Field said last week he thought it was like still 65-35 in terms of NFL type people that prefer McMillan to Golden. What do you think about who will be the first wide receiver selected in this year's draft?
The Tet hive is really strong, but I just can't get past how I feel about that just being like the fantasy people like me and you being like, the profile is so good, he's going to be so good. When like history really tells us that these guys who run really fast 40s, like they rise in the process. Like Henry Ruggs went really high. Jameson Williams went really high. Like
Jalen
these guys
Waddle
go
went
high
6th
after they run really
overall.
fast. Yeah. So like, Tet McMillan is like not really that guy. Like he's not a great athlete. He's probably a worse athlete than Drake London is. I mean, Drake London obviously was like a top 10 pick, but I guess my point is just to say that when it's close, I'm taking the guy that's really fast. And, we took Golden obviously at like 3-1 or like plus 250. That was great value. I still think that this should probably be like even money, probably a coin flip between him and McMillan. I just haven't seen the McMillan hype. I feel like everything about this dude has been negative. He didn't run super fast at his pro day. I think we were kind of expecting that, but then like, why did you run at all? He had like that thing about like he doesn't watch film, which again,
what do you?
like,
I was going to bring that up.
What do you like?
What do you think about that? That little so
I mean,
what happened
I think
was
that like
a video came out of Tet McMillan saying that he doesn't like to watch film.
Yeah, like I just don't say that, dude. You're interviewing for like the most important job in your life. Like I'm sure Tyreek Hill is like not grinding the tape every week going into the game, but like you just can't say that. Like it's just bad situational awareness. It's an F- for me.
Yeah, it looked like he was like eating while he was doing some like interview. It looked like he didn't even know that if he was being recorded or it was like some like college show that like he didn't expect anyone to watch. So I don't know, man. I hope teams don't take it overly serious, but it's certainly not good. And I think that has affected the line more to the point where now, again, minus 200 on McMillan, plus 150 on Golden to go first. I do not think that either of these other guys, Burden or Agbuka, are candidates to go be the first wide receiver off the board. Evan, any final thoughts on this market before we move on?
See, Amico, I thought that Tet did run well for his size. He's 6'4", 219, and he ran somewhere reported between like 4.48 and 4.52. Although I know it's pro day and you can get different higher than that or worse than that.
Yeah, that was like the Jordan Schultz, like I got it from the agent time.
Right. Okay.
And then like all the people that have reporting integrity said that it was like 5.56 or whatever, 4.56 or 4.58, whatever it is.
Okay. All right. I don't know. Because I think he's awesome. I think that Tet McMillan is freaking awesome.
Dude, you're not alone. Listen, you're not alone.
But you're right. His process has been like red flaggy, I guess.
Yeah, I still think McMillan should be favored. I wouldn't call it quite a coin flip like Amico, especially because Golden's college production just like wasn't that great. You know what I mean? Like you come out, you run 4.29. I think teams are getting wiser to the fact that 40 speed at wide receiver position does not correlate to NFL success. So we'll see. Okay.
This is still, a position that it's so. I think that this is like the most wide open position, one of the most wide open positions in what seems like a very wide open draft. What about Egbuka at 16-1? He gets a lot of comparisons, and I know they went to the same college, to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown, and those guys have had a lot of success. Would we rule out Egbuka? He seems like a guy who has had a good like pre-draft process. What do you think?
I mean, 16-1, I'm not going to try to break your heart. I just don't think that it's like he just doesn't. He's a guy that I feel like everyone says he's a wide receiver too, and I would just be surprised if he went before two guys that people think could be wide receiver ones.
I think the narrative on him is just the ceiling isn't that high, like Amico said, you know. And if you're going to spend a really high pick on, then maybe you want a bigger ceiling. All right. Speaking of ceilings, tight end. I've seen people, including Renner, who we're going to have on later this week, as Evan mentioned, who have Colston Loveland ahead of the most amazing Penn State tight end prospect I've ever seen. I mean, are people really doing this, Amico? They're trying to talk themselves into Colston Loveland over the Mackey Award winner, Tyler Warren, who had one of the most dominant tight end seasons you could ever possibly imagine. Tyler Warren minus 800 now, Colston Loveland plus 500 to be the first tight end off the board. Am I taking crazy pills here, Amico?
I mean, I think it's just, what are you looking for? You know, like Warren is the better all-around tight end. Loveland is the better receiver. So what is it that you really want out of that position? There's been indications, I think, throughout the process that there are teams that view this as pretty close. I am not sure that that's the majority of teams, and I'm not sure that that means that Loveland would come off first. I think 5-1 definitely has me interested, but I'm not like windmilling that, because I just think that Warren is just such a more complete player, you know? And if we're talking about the teams that need tight end at the top of the board, you know, we're talking Jets, we're talking Colts. Like, these are teams that are going to take the inline guy. You know, I think Loveland's best outs is really if the tight end position just doesn't go for a bit, then he becomes a little bit more viable, because those teams further down the board are more likely to take the receiving tight end.
Colston Loveland also coming off shoulder surgery. I did notice that, and I want to give away everything that Renner is going to be doing for us on Thursday, but Mike Renner has Colston Loveland as the number one tight end in this class, and I'm going to have to give him some crap about this, and then he compares him to Kobe Fleener. Okay.
Hey man, Kobe Fleener had a moment there.
He did have a moment, but some people really, really like Colston Loveland. I think he seems to me like he is going to go like in the 20s or maybe even like the early 30s, though, whereas Tyler Warren could go like top 10 easily.
Okay. I don't have much else I really want to talk about in terms of these positional ones. I just wanted to note for people that if you're betting these cornerback markets, if you click on Travis Hunter, almost every site is doing this. It says Travis Hunter will be classified as a cornerback only and will not be counted as a wide receiver for settlement purposes. In other words, you know, we're not going to sneak anyone by them by taking Will Johnson 16-1 to be the first corner. Travis Hunter gets announced as a wide receiver. DraftKings is grading that as a loss, and I think almost every other book is also. So no play really for me there. Amico, any other positional markets you wanted to hit on here before we move on? We have offensive line, defensive line, CB2, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, we can keep it right here. I think Jahdae Barron to be the second corner is a decent value here at plus 135. I mean, you want to talk about bad process. I feel like Will Johnson has pretty much just had a bad year. Like the tape this year, if you listen to like Jeremiah, the guys who know, like the tape this year wasn't that great. He was hurt a lot. You know, and Barron has been a riser. He was someone that maybe would have been a nickel corner, a slot corner only, but then he ran pretty well at the combine. So teams have a little bit better of a view for him. I know Jeremiah has Barron just rated higher. So I kind of like Barron there, plus 135.
Yeah, that's a close one there. Minus 175 versus plus 135 on Barron. Evan, any other positions you wanted to talk about?
Offensive line.
Yeah, offensive line is Membu minus 125 to be the first offensive lineman off the board. Will Campbell, even money, plus 100.
Yeah, you know, I think that Kelvin Banks is worth a shot here. I think that I've heard that the Jets really like him at number 7, and they're pretty and there are some like length concerns when it comes to Will Campbell and Membu to a less of an extent. I think that Kelvin Banks, and where did he go in? I don't know. He's been like creeping up mocks. I saw him as high as number 11 overall recently. So I think that maybe the people reporting on the draft are starting to catch up that teams like Kelvin Banks more than people on the outside thought initially. I think that Kelvin Banks could be a real high draft pick and is worth a shot at 12-1 to be the first offensive lineman drafted.
Okay, interesting. I like that one. Okay, one market that is up on most of the sites is position of first player drafted by team. So for every team, you can go in and say the first player they draft, what position will they be? These are often pretty mispriced, in my opinion, especially because they are set for a team drafting, especially high up in the draft. They're set for a team drafting in a certain position. If they trade out of that position, it could completely change what's available and what they end up taking. So I do think that there's some opportunity here. Every single team has long shots, favorites, etc. So if you have a lean here, I would definitely check this market. I wanted to start with the Bills here, Evan, where running back is 50-1 for the Bills to take a running back with their first pick. Evan, any thoughts on what the Bills are going to do here with their first pick of the draft?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sound crazy at surface level, but again, like I'm looking for long shots, and especially with James Cook coming off an awesome year. Ray Davis played really well as their number 2/3. It may seem crazy, but there have been trade rumors surrounding James Cook, who, I mean, they're going to have to give him like a pretty big contract, or they could sell high on him, and then the Bills they're drafting at number 30 overall.
Yes.
Double check that. Yes, they're at 30 overall, and I mean, I think that that's a range where a running back could go. Omarion Hampton or Dylan Sampson. I know, again, it's a long shot. It's 50-1, but I think it's worth a sprinkle.
Amico, any thoughts on that? And then I do want to move to Patriots while we're here on the AFC East.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, they haven't extended James Cook yet. I think that's a good range for running back, like I haven't said. So I'm cool with that. On the Patriots, as you mentioned, like this is textbook what you were saying before. Like they're picking fourth. So these odds are set as if they're picking fourth. Like they're going to get Travis Hunter, cornerback, or they're going to just bite the bullet and take the tackle at 4. But if they trade back, which feels pretty viable, linebacker I think is way, way, way underpriced at 80-1. Jalen Walker has been a player that has been mentioned as someone who would be like an ideal Vrabel guy for that defense. They've added a lot of pieces to that defense, but I think that Walker is a very versatile chess piece for them. Like definitely in play, I think, in a trade back scenario, and you're getting that at 80-1. So I like these a little bit better than like those overall pick markets, just because you're attacking the fact that they might move versus like you get kind of screwed if they move in the overall picks case.
Listen, you don't have to be right very often for 80-1 to be a good bet, and like that's really long there on Patriots to take a linebacker should they trade back. Speaking of trading, Evan, it seems like the Eagles are just giving up on Dallas Goedert. And like, we can talk more about that later. He's not that expensive. I'm a little surprised, but it seems like they're just like, you know what? We're just going to move on. They added 2 in free agency, 2 tight ends. But yeah, I mean, it's 13-1 for them to take a tight end. I know you liked this one. Any more thoughts on the Goddard situation and what the Eagles will do with their first pick? They pick 32nd overall in the first round.
Dallas Goedert's 30 years old. And, I think that Howie Roseman is a guy that would like to get out from underneath a guy that might start to hit the age cliff. And, I'm sure that Howie Roseman is concerned with, positional age cliffs, and, not all tight ends age, the same. Dallas Goedert played really, really well down the stretch last year, but they could get something for him. And they're picking in the range where, they might have a chance at Colston Loveland. I think that they've been connected a little bit to Mason Taylor of LSU. So I think that is a real possibility at 13-1 Eagles to take a tight end with their first pick.
Yeah, I like that. Current Eagles tight end room is Grant Calcaterra, Harrison Bryant, and Kylan Granson. Those are their top 3 tight ends right now. But yeah, I would think Eagles go best player available at 32 overall, assuming they stick there. And Colston Loveland could easily be the best player available at 32 overall. That would not shock me whatsoever. Let's go to Chargers here, Amico. Chargers are really interesting. We know that they are a bit of a boomerish type mentality here. Any thoughts on Chargers' position of first player drafted?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that signing Najee Harris is going to necessarily keep them from taking a running back. So 14-1, they get another guy in there who can run the ball. I mean, they want to pound the rock. I thought that they were very, very good last year when they were able to run the football effectively. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, like those guys are stone dust compared to the people that they could probably get at this pick. I know that Najee is probably like the classic Harbaugh back because he's not going to fumble and he's going to get you the 3.8 yards per carry. But if they want someone a little more dynamic to mix in there, this is kind of a good spot for it.
Yeah, 22nd overall here. The Chargers are picking. One that stuck out to me was this Lions stuff. And given where the Lions are picking here, 28th overall, defensive line / edge is minus 200. That is a lot of confidence for a team picking 28th overall, what position they're going to take. And I understand Aiden Hutchinson's coming off an injury. I understand they don't have somebody opposite him really that is very good. That said, and they need defensive line edge. But man, minus 200 seems pretty wild to me here. I'm looking for these spots where the market is overconfident. Offensive line is plus 200 here. Safety is 30-1. Wideout is plus 950. I like taking some shots on long shots for the Lions. Any thoughts on Lions' position of first player drafted, Amico?
I mean, I completely agree with what you said. Like, there's just so many things that can change when you're picking this far down the board. Like, they're not going to just settle for the best pass rusher. And this is not like an amazing edge class, in my opinion. They're going to be in a great spot to take an offensive lineman. I mean, they just traded a guard away. So I feel like that is a decent spot of need. I know that they signed a corner, but they also lost a corner. So like corner is definitely still in play. Yeah. Safety could absolutely be the best player on the board at this juncture if like Emanwari or one of those guys falls. So I think any of those three positions makes a lot of sense. I mean, we can pretty much X out like tight end, quarterback, running back, obviously, but some of these other positions I think are too long.
The Lions are also not necessarily a team that drafts by the book, does makes the chalky moves in the draft. And that's actually why they sometimes get bad draft grades, after the draft. But I would, this is a great spot to take a chance, I think, on some long shots. And I think cornerback and maybe even safety stands out.
Yeah. Last one on my list here is Jets, Amico. We can be a little bit more confident what they're going to do because they're picking higher. Offensive line is the favorite here at plus 150, tight end plus 180. I mean, they need offensive line help bad. I mean, this has been an issue for a long time. I'm not surprised offensive line is the favorite here. You can still get plus 150, though. Amico, any thoughts on Jets with their first pick?
Yeah, I mean, I like the O-line. Like, I feel like Evan mentioned that they're interested in Kelvin Banks. I definitely think that Armand Membu would be a great pick for them as someone who could be a right tackle. Your first draft as a new regime kind of sets the tone for the kind of football team that you want to have. And we know that these guys in this Dan Campbell coaching tree, they want to establish it up front. Ben Johnson traded for a couple linemen. They signed a center. The Jets have a couple pieces that were already in place on the offensive line, but they really need a right tackle. And they have 3 running backs. They have Justin Fields. Like, they are going to run the ball 500 times this year. Yeah. So they need to shore up that spot. And I think that they're going to be in an awesome position to do it.
Yes, 7th overall, the Jets will be picking certainly a good range here for offensive linemen. You can still get plus money there. Like, it's just wild to me. Like, the Jets offensive line is plus 150, but market is so sure the Lions are going to take a defensive lineman at 28th overall. They're minus 200. So, yeah, man, draft betting is just the best. Okay, let's go to some of these fun ones here. Can you match the player to the team? There's only 3 of these up right now, if I can find it. Here we go. Player drafted by. Which team will Ashton Jeanty be drafted by? Raiders are the favorite at minus 150. Bears plus 225. Cowboys plus 800. And then some long shots from there. This is a fun market here for both fantasy and betting purposes, Amico. Any thoughts on which team will Ashton Jeanty be drafted by?
I mean, I think the Saints and the Patriots are both decent long shots here. Jeanty is one of these guys that, running back's been low valued, but I feel like running back's on the upswing now after the Saquon thing. This is kind of how the league works, right? Like, Eagles sign Saquon, they win the Super Bowl. Okay, great. Running backs are back. And it's not a great draft class, and Genti is like a consensus top 10 guy. So two of these teams that pick in the top 10, even if the Patriots slid back a little bit, like neither of these teams are really settled at running back. Like Alvin Kamara is definitely on the wrong side of the age curve. I don't think Ramondre is like an amazing player. So I think that both of those teams are going to have a chance there to take him if they'd like to.
Yeah, Saints are 14-1, Patriots 18-1. Silva, any thoughts on the Genti market right now?
Yeah, this is my first time looking at this, but the Saints stand out to me at 14-1. That's the range I think he's going to go in, number 9 overall. And yeah, that would give them another dynamic player, Alvin Kamara. Coming off a nice season, but I mean, we know he's on the back 9 for sure.
Okay. Which team will Travis Hunter be drafted by? That's a tougher one, I think, to pin down. If you got wind of a trade or something like that, or if there were trade rumors out there, that would be a spot, I think, to attack. For now, though, I'm probably passing there. The more interesting one to me is which team will Tyler Warren be drafted by? Amico already mentioned Jets have a need at tight end. Colts have a need at tight end. They're both picking in the range where theoretically you could see Tyler Warren going, but I sense a little bit of market overconfidence here that he's going to go to one of those two teams, Amico, Jets or Colts. Any thoughts on this one? Which team will draft Tyler Warren?
Yeah, I mean, what about Carolina at 20-1? Like, talk about a team that needs pass catchers of any variety, whoever they could be. Jatavian Sanders was solid last year. I don't think that they're necessarily done with him, but 12 personnel is a thing for a reason. Like, they can play Warren in line and they can play, Sanders off the ball if they want to. They just need to get Bryce Young as much help as possible. And if we're saying that the receiver class is not amazing and it's a little unsettled, like Tet versus Golden, well, just take the guy that you already know is a really good football player in Tyler Warren.
Yeah. The reason I think that this line is going to stay down is because Canales keeps coming out and saying, we need defense. We need to address defense. We need to address defense. We need to address defense, right? That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen when they're on the clock, but I just wanted to note that coach speak from Canales. Evan, any thoughts on the Tyler Warren market here?
No, I don't have any strong opinions on this one.
Okay. Last markets to look at are positional totals. So these are ones that are up every year. How many of X position will go in the first round? The interesting ones to me are, of course, the skill positions. Quarterback over under 2.5 with big juice on the over. Running backs over under 2.5 with big juice on the under. Wide receivers over under 2.5 with big juice on the over. Amico, do you have any favorites here on the positional totals right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the running back over is interesting, not at this price, but if you shop it around, there's still some like plus 250s out there or better. I think that that's good. Trevion Henderson would be the third running back off the board, I think, and it sounds like that has, at least some likelihood of happening in the latter stages of round 1. And it's not sexy, and you're going to yell at me, Adam, but the offensive line under Lang minus 280, I just think it's a really good bet. I don't see the numbers. I don't see the guys that are going to go. I mean, there's the 3 guys that we've already mentioned, but then it's like kind of a lot of guys who are way up in the air. A couple guys coming off injuries, a couple guys who maybe aren't good enough. So I think that under is pretty solid.
Oh, I mean, I would never yell at you for laying minus 280. Sometimes the best value is on laying big numbers, and yeah, minus 280. I would have no problem laying that whatsoever if we thought that it was strong. Yeah, on the running back stuff, do you consider Hampton a lock to go in round 1, Amico?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So if Hampton's a lock to go in round 1, then you just need Henderson to go there. And as Amico said, if you shop that price, you can probably get it a little bit better. Evan, any thoughts on any of these markets here? Oh, and I should note at quarterback, over 2.5 is minus 350. Like, the market is basically saying now that Jackson Dart is basically like really, really likely to go in round 1. But yeah, go ahead, Evan.
I mean, I'm a sucker, but I would just bet every plus money bet here and, just hope I came out in the green.
On the wide receivers, Amico, I guess over 2.5 is minus 275 right now. What do you think about that one? Obviously, we expect both Golden and Tet to go in round 1. Who would you consider the other candidates? Obviously, we already talked about, I keep butchering his name. I don't even want to say it because they're going to kill me in the comments for butchering his name, but the kid from Ohio State, And then any other wide receivers you think are candidates to go in round 1?
Yeah, I'd say Egbuka and then Luther Burden maybe would be the fourth guy that has a chance. I kind of just feel like for the Egbuka stuff, it was like Texans, 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 and then the Texans traded away half their offensive line, and now that doesn't seem as likely. So I do like it at plus 200. The under, I mean, I just don't ultimately see Burden as a round 1 guy. I think Egbuka is really the only guy that you're really trying to miss out on there. And, like we said before, he's not like a high ceiling player. So him not making the first round wouldn't really shock me.
All right. We've said it all about the 2025 NFL draft and draft props. In fact, we probably said too much by the time you listen to this. Hopefully you listen to it quick. Some of this stuff will certainly be on the move. But yeah, you guys keep grinding this stuff. This is some of the biggest edges that you can find in NFL betting, especially if you shop around and get some good prices on this and you're really tuned in to what's going on with the NFL draft. We'll try to pop back on here for kind of an update in probably a few weeks, but stay tuned over the next 7 to 10 days or so as we'll be rolling out our draft prospect pods with Mike Renner. Positional will go 4 pods, 1 for each position. Stay tuned for that. And do not forget about our sale on the golf. Be sure to check that out. You can see more details on my Twitter. For Amico, for Silva, producer Ryan, producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.